Hello again. This is Nick Roach. Another nice afternoon. Not quite so warm, got a thick jersey, but the sun's out. I'm going to entitle this little video, You're All Individuals. I'm not. I'm the same. And some of you might recognise this from a little video. When was it? Many years ago. In the 80s, I think. Can't even see how old it is. Monty Python's The Life of Brian. Now it's about a chap called Brian who people decide he's the new Messiah, and they're all outside his house on this occasion waiting for him to come out to hear his words of wisdom, and he's telling them, you're all individuals, and they all chant together, we're all individuals, and one shouts, I'm not, I'm the same. And again he says, you're all different. They go, we're all different. I'm not, I'm not. You see, it occurred to me, because I've had a few messages, emails, comments recently from people of other backgrounds, teachings, philosophies, who are not too happy the way that I explain things. Some of them are quite aggressive, judgmental, critical. They don't accept or like the way I'm describing it, or don't like the words I'm using for certain things because they use the words for other things. What I'm saying doesn't fit with their experience. And then you have other people who do like what I say, or what any teacher says, and they think they should replicate in some way, somehow, what I or the person am saying. And certainly when I was following Barry Long's teachings, I was thinking, to a certain extent, maybe my experiences, my insights, should reflect the ones he had. It's easy to assume, if you respect the teacher and his path and believe him to be the genuine article, that he's describing the way it should be. And often that is what the teacher even says. This is the insight, this is what it should be. So it leaves people who are still trying to get there, we'll come to that, believing there's already a set path they have to follow as to how they get there. There's already set insights and realizations and experiences they should have because their teacher has described them, so they're looking for that experience. And if someone else had no experience, purely just happened to them, they're in this state, well, that can't be true, because my teacher says you go through all this experience. Someone else has all the experiences, another teacher just says, well, there isn't any path, there are no experiences, there are no realizations, it's just being it. Well, that means you're not there then, because you haven't had the knowledge as I've had. So we've got all this confusion, and on the groups and the forums to do with spiritual teachings, so many people are arguing, discussing and debating, sometimes quite aggressively, sadly, accusing and defending, I'm there, you're not there, you don't know, I'm there, you don't know what you're talking about because that teacher said this, excuse the geese please, he said that, so he's wrong and he's right. It's a bit of a tangled mess, really. Now, I'm not saying I'm the one to sort it all out, but I'd like to offer a few bits. Now, all spiritual teachings and spiritual teachers and spiritual seekers are, by definition, looking at the spiritual aspect of life. Now, however you understand or interpret the word spiritual, it's to do with one's inner being, original state or nature, the energy behind the person. I'm hoping we understand that. And spiritual teachings teach one how to go within. And a spiritual teacher hopefully should be advanced ahead enough of the people he's teaching to teach them more about it, to get them up to where, if possible, his level, let's say, without putting definite levels into it. But of course, they're all going to the same place. They're all working towards the same, I'm going to use the word point, the being within, the same energetic point, the same level, state, experience, non-experience. All teachings, all teachers are pointing towards that. And all seekers, followers, doesn't matter what the word is, are looking for that same point. So if we start always with that knowledge, all teachers and teachings are pointing to the same point. If we start from that level of agreement when talking with somebody else, then it removes so much of the debate and arguing, because then it becomes about who describes it better, let's say, for your own personal experience, whose teaching fits yours better, your experience, your knowledge, your background, because there's a teacher for everybody, let's say. Of course, not all teachers are in the same depth of being, depth of experience, depth of oneness, unity, nothing, being, and that is true. And most teachers should say that they know it's moving on and going deeper and deeper all the time. And in that way, I would like to think they would acknowledge there could well be other teachers deeper into the state than they are, if it's always moving on, always going finer and finer and stiller and stiller. Well, of course, some may not say that. Some might say one day they became in this state and it hasn't changed since, and therefore never will do. And again, I respect that. That's their experience. No problem with me. No problem for me. I have no issue with that. And that's the point here. If we're able to meet people when talking or discussing the spiritual life and spiritual teachers and teachings, and come to it from the perspective, from the point that they're describing the same thing, and the people who are genuinely in the state, to a certain point where it has become all encompassing and their own being, they are literally, they have no separate being beyond this whole place, is their own being. Even one of the famous non-duality teachers calls it boundless energy. That's all this is. And someone's in that state. When all the teachers are in that state, let's say all lined up, all in that state, 100 of them, let's say, you'll still find they'll all describe it either a little differently or very differently. And from what I've heard and read, and a lot of them will be insisting the others aren't really there, because they are saying they followed a path, or they're saying they didn't follow a path, or they're saying it just happened, they're saying no, it can't just happen. But they're all in the same state of being. And that's why I'm in this talk. We're all individuals, because everybody's path will be different. Everyone's journey is different. Everybody's insight and experiences and realizations will be different. Not just from someone in another teaching, but even from their own teacher as well. And this is really important to see. Find a teacher or teaching that works for you, fantastic. But there's no need to try to replicate or tell yourself that you should replicate and relive his experiences, or that you mustn't have any experiences because he didn't. Excuse the dog barking. Because we are all individuals, and everybody's path is completely different, often, to someone else's. And then the second part of the quote, I'm not, I'm the same. When you're in this state of experience, of being. For me, I recognise if someone else describes it, yeah, that sounds like the state I'm in now. That's good. We're the same. Even though they're insisting, oh no, we're different because you said this and you said that and I didn't have that. To me, we're still the same. If you're in this state and I'm in that state, I understand what you're saying. You may not like what I'm saying, it's no problem. But we're the same. And as we started off by saying, all spiritual teachings are pointing to the same state. Self-realization is realizing the true self, the one self, the higher self. Becoming awake is one's own being, mind, awareness, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, waking up to all of this as its own nature. There's no argument in that. There's no need to argue about that. Why would there be? So we're all individuals on the path, the route, but all the routes end up in the same place. But of course, they're all different because it's a path, it's a route, a journey through one's own mind, through the psyche, the unconscious and the unhappiness, the emotions, the likes and dislikes, the personality, the beliefs, the opinions, the regrets, the hates, the fears, the worries, all the upsets they've ever had. This is the journey through the emotional world. Even if one doesn't know that's happening, that's what's happening. And some might just happen like that. Others might take a slow road, have different experiences, yes, it's all going to the same place. But the journeys can be very different. So don't feel you have to follow someone else's journey. Don't feel your path has to replicate or agree with someone else's. Don't even think the words have to match. The words, description, experiences, it's all individual. But they're all pointing to the same place. If they're pointing to something over there, if they're telling you to fly off to some far off land, go to a certain grid reference, dig under a rock 6 foot down and dig up a metal chest that'll be in there, then yes, that's very different. But I haven't heard of a teaching or teacher that does that, that says that, because we're going with him. So all the teachings are pointing to the same place. But the journey there can be very different. So don't worry about how other people describe it. Don't worry about how I describe it. Don't worry about everything else. The point is being aware. Being aware of the point I am, the stillness, the being inside you, and hold on to that. As long as you're doing that as much as you can, that is the point. That is where you're sinking into. That is your being. That's where you're going. Thank you.